Hi everyone, this is Group C. Today, we choose China to introduce. We have the 6 group members, so we will analyze and present the basic situations in China from 6 aspects. This is the first question. I will introduce it from 2 parts. The first one is globalization affects the political economy in China. So what is the globalization? This means making world's economy more integrated and independent. The globalization has several aspects, including the globalization of markets and the globalization of production. And the policy economy means the political, economic, and legal system of country interact and influence each other and affect the level of economic well-being in the nation. I will introduce how the globalization affects China from 3 aspects. The first one is the political system. It is promoting the reform of the over-centralized political system and accelerating the process of building civilization in the socialist country. The second one is globalization has provided the impotence for our political development and the rapid growth in demand for democracy has increasing citizens' expectations of political participation. The second one is economic systems. Firstly, it boosts the nation's income, spurred trade and investment, and promoted the sustained and health development of China's economy. The second one is expanded China's income gap and intensified the pressure on cross-border capital flows. The third one is the legal system. Under the globalization, the Chinese legal system will be more modernization. The second part is what challenges might the legal system of China present for our Australia firm consider establishing a press in China. We can see that China's legal system and Australia's legal system is totally different. In China's legal system is civil law, which is more strictly follow the law and the regulations to enforce the law. In Australia, it is a common law, which is more focused on the uniqueness of each case. Now I will give a further example to further explain it. A young boy was electrocuted when he tried a high voltage line and sued a power company. The lawyer made a boy stand in front of the jury for 10 minutes to show his face. In China, the civil law system would have ruled that he touched it himself, but there is a warning sign next to the power company, so the company do not have any damages. But in the Australia jury, would have award damage to power company, and the jury would have found that the boy is too badly electrocuted based on the human nature. We can see the result in the China and Australia is totally different. So under the different legal system, there have 2 challenges the Australia company will facing when they establish the business in China. The first one is about the contract law. Under the common law system, contracts treat to be more details, but in the civil law system, the contracts treat to much shorter and less specific because many issues are already covered in the civil code. And the foreigner companies in China will follow the Chinese legal systems. So the company So the companies, so the Australia company's legal department need to have a better understanding of conflict China's legal system. And the second one is about property rights and corruptions. We can know that high level of the corruptions reduce the foreign direct investments, the level of international trade and the economic growth rate in the country. From these two screenshots, we can know that China's cooperation score is much lower than Australia's. And from the English and more shows that due to the high level of ambiguity of property rights in China, of a company's announcement of investing in China negatively affects its score value in 1%. And there another case about to have a further explain it is in 1989, the McDonald's come to bring American fast food to Chinese people. It signs a 20-year lease with Beijing's government to reach a site at one of Beijing's most desirable locations. About 2 years later, the government ordered McDonald's to move out the location because of a Hong Kong businessman was going to develop a commercial residual and office complex here. Even though McDonald's had lease was protected by Chinese law, but the court refused to enforce its lease and reduced that McDonald must go. So from this, we can know that the lack of property rights and the lower scores of corruption is badly for companies' value and state liability. That's all.
Okay, I'm Wei Chen. I will talk about question 2. So I will analyze the economic development and human development. And choose which one is greatest. So next page, please. First of all, I will talk about expand. Firms are always in a constant urgency to expand to unexplored markets in efforts to improve their profitability. Australian firms need to expand to other markets globally in an effort to grow in stature and profits. China provides one of the best markets that Australian firms can explore and succeed in. The Chinese market is one of the most diverse and developed markets in the world. Its level of economic and human development provides a stable environment for Australian firms to thrive. Next page, please. So I will talk about the economic development. Today, China is the second economy in the world in terms of GDP. In 2021, China's was at 22,996 billion, a massive figure compared to Australia's 1,543 billion in the same year. China prides itself in two main aspects. First one is innovation and entrepreneurship. China is a world leader in terms of its level of technology. Australian firms moving into China will benefit immensely from the state-of-the-art technology applied in manufacturing. The immense government spending geared towards research and development in China has elevated China's technological level to be the world's best. Technology often reduces the cost of production for manufacturing firms, hence many Australian firms entering the Chinese market will benefit largely by improved profit margins. Further, the business environment in Australia is uniquely geared towards entrepreneurship. In 2021, China accounted for 14.9% of the total imports and 19.1% of the global total exports. So the second part is infrastructure. China's infrastructure has been among the leading contributors to their revamp over the last several decades. Australian firms entering the Chinese market will benefit from the trillions of dollars investment in new energy, high-speed rail, and several other projects that is intended at making production and distribution in the market for goods easier. Next page, please. So last part, I will talk about human development. China has recorded significant improvements in year of education per capita and life expense in the recent past. Despite having a large population size of 1.426 billion people, the Chinese economy has achieved significant improvements in the total national income and wealth distribution. So it's still much to be done in human development to research the levels of countries like Australia and Norway. But Australian firms entering the Chinese market will have access to a cheap but disciplined and diligent labor force. So overall, Australian firms willing to join the Chinese market will benefit more from its level of economic development than their human development level. Establishing a presence into the Chinese market will give Australian firms access to a vast network of infrastructure ranging from railway lines, road networks, and water transport vessels. This will ease distribution and access to the 1.426 billion people market. Further, China's world-leading level of innovation and entrepreneurship will boost competitiveness of the Australian firms and allow them to operate at optimum levels. So that's all. Next, please.
I'm going to introduce the questions 3. So using at least 2 relevant theories and frameworks assess the cultural distance between your chosen country and Australia. Using relevant concepts, critically analyze if the country of the two countries are becoming more similar or more disparate. Okay, next page. First of all, the country we chosen is China, and I will use Hosford cultural dimension and Ronan and Shankar cultural cluster. This is 2 theories to compare the cultural differences between China and Australia. The PPT on this page is about the 6th dimension of data, and the data from China and Australia are static for comparison. In this chart, we can see the comparison between China and Australia. In this dimension, you can see how different the number are between the two countries. And the greater the difference in numerical value between the two countries, the worse the country difference between them. Next page, please. First is half cultural. These are 6 dimensions: individualism and collectivism. And second is power distance and masculinity, uncertainty, avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. We can see that Australia has strong individualism and see through the data. Australia is 19 and China is 20. As we know, on the contrary, China is collectivism. The power distance in China has largely been distributed unequally, and in Australia is less. However, these 2 countries show the similar in masculinity. Then regarding uncertainty avoidance, the data show that China is uncertainty tolerant and Australia is uncertainty avoidance. And long-term orientation data show that China is long-term and Australia is short-term. Finally, the indulgence showed that China is almost resistant and Australia is indulgent. Through this series, we can see that the cultural similarities between Australia and China are far apart. And next page. So this page is using Ronan and Shankar cultural cluster. So Ronan and Shankar cultural cluster use three main elements, language, religion, and geography to distinguish the difference between the culture. We can see that Chinese language is hieroglyphy, and the pronunciation is very complex with many different tones. Australia has no official language, but the most common language is English, with a small number of Aboriginal Australia language spoken. In terms of religion, Buddhism has the largest number of followers in China, followed by Taoism. In some minority region, some people believe in Iceland, and some people are believers of Christianity. On the other hand, in Australia, Christianity is the dominant religion in Australia, but Buddhism is the least part. We can tell that Chinese and Australian religion are very different. And the geographical location of China and Australia is also very different, which will have a great influence on on the culture between the two countries. The figure on the right shows the New World map represented in a tree-like form, which is following the cluster comparing the difference. You can see that China is classified as Confucian and Australia is classified as Anglo, which also show that China and Australia have a totally different culture. And next page, please. So using Hoff's cultural dimension and Ronan and Shankar cultural cluster to analyze China and Australia culture show that these two countries have different culture and these two country culture will become disparate. I'm finished.
Yeah, here is question 4, next page. To solve question 4, we need to understand that the Smith theory of absolutely advantages and David Ricardo's comparative advantages. As we know, the theory holds that international trade can be a win-win situation. Ideally, each country only produces the goods in which it has absolutely advantage and imports all the rest. Comparative advantages as it related to the international trade refer to the good that a nation can produce more easily or at a lower cost than another nations. Even though this typically shows the advantages of the trade, some model economics now recognize that relying solely on comparative advantages can lead to resources exploitation and depletion in a nation. So what is the difference between them? Absolute advantages is when one party is able to produce a product more quickly and at a higher profit than another country or competitor. Comparative advantage consider the opportunity cost involved in choosing to produce various goods with limited resources. They both have a significant impact on how and why countries and companies allocate resources to the creation of specific commodities and services. Next page. Furthermore, our group thinks that the absolutely advantage is a better choice. For the consequence of choosing it, I got 4 points here. First, it can focus on industries where it has an advantage over its competitors and has the ability to create things more efficiently and economically. In addition, it can focus all of the country's production on single goods, is unrealistic and potentially dangerous and did not take into account the multilateral trade that could take place between countries. A cooperation economic nation or individual with a comparative advantage is able to provide the consumer a better value than its rivals. It is comparable to comparative advantage but different from it. Absolute advantage is undeniable ability of a nation or company to produce a certain good more effectively. Next page. Last but not least, for the absolute advantage of China, our group analyzes it from 4 aspects. Natural resources. China has abundant natural resources including coal, iron ore, copper, gold, lead, bauxite, tungsten, zinc, and oil. These resources are essential for China's economic development and can help it maintain an absolute advantage. Human environment. China has a large population and a strong work ethic, which has enabled it maintain a competitive advantage in the global market. Furthermore, its lower labor cost and large domestic market have enabled it to remain competitive in the global market. Educational level. China has made significant investment in its education system, resulting in a highly educated workforce. This has enabled China to remain competitive in the global market and has provided it with an absolute advantage. Historical factors. China's non-history and cultural heritage have provided it with an advantage in a global market. As a result, its products and services are highly sought after and have helped it to maintain its absolute advantage. In conclusion, China has an absolute advantage in the global market due to its abundant natural resources, strong human environment, highly educated workforce, and its non-history and cultural heritage. These factors have enabled China to maintain its comparative advantage and remain a leader in the global market. Next page. Next question is question 5.
Question 5 is what trade policy instruments does your chosen country's government currently employ? Which series of international trade does this use of trade policy instruments support? Explain using illustrative examples. Next page, please. According to the national situation and modern development in China in recent years, China is currently at the stage of transforming classical trade into modern trade. Initially, due to the lack of experience in China's export trade, it could only occupy the basic area development segment. Although it has still not touched the high level of developed countries, it has a high room for upward mobility, thus reducing the differentiation of the level of international trade with developed countries. Next page, please. China has used the 3 main trade policy instruments: tariffs, subsidies, and import quotas. Firstly, China did not reduce its important tariffs when it enters the world trade market, but it did reduce its export tariffs, resulting in increased fiscal revenues. Secondly, on the one hand, China made direct investments in the United States and Europe before entering the World Trade Organization, prompting the Chinese government to have a source of funding for subsidies to domestic exporters and gain access to export markets. On the other hand, China abandoned quotas on U.S. imports for car manufacturing, but the Sino-foreign joint venture still held more than half of the equality by maintaining the number of export tariffs. The Chinese government used mercantilism treated as a zero-sum game to make gains that prevented the US from benefiting and even risked corporate losses. At the same time, the Chinese government intervenes in the foreign exchange market to keep export price low. The currency exchange rate was manipulated so that the RMB appreciated against the US dollar, thus allowing China's economy to grow rigorously. Next page, please. Furthermore, according to the neo-mechanicalism of classical trade theory, it has successfully entered the international trade market by the reducing profits and import quotas and increasing subsidies for export industries respectively. China has moved from the joint ventures with overseas companies to promote exports and restrict imports from US manufacturing industries, while moving from a trade level to an economic level, rising from the basic sector to a high level of development as well. The increase in economic power has led to a rise in China's political level. That's all.
So I'm talking about the impact of globalization on China. As you know, globalization has brought the world together, and now there is a whole range of countries that are part of each other. Many countries, especially China, have benefited from globalization since the reform and opening up. And the benefits of globalization within China has been comprehensive and balanced in the past 40 years to a large extent. China's economy has taken great leaps forward thanks to globalization. I believe that China is one of the biggest beneficiaries of globalization and the winner of globalization. Next page. Firstly, globalization has helped China to introduce advanced management theories and experience from around the world, enabling it to integrate more quickly into the world system, to take full advantage of the industrial restructuring opportunities in developed countries, and to continue to accelerate China's industrialization. Globalization provides opportunities for Chinese enterprises to actively participate in international competition in a wider range of areas. It facilitates the improvement of the international foreign trade environment and promotes China financial reform. Next page. Secondly, Chinese culture has gone global with Chinese cultural festivals in various countries, which has enhanced China's influence and international status. While the exchange of science and culture has promoted the advance of Chinese science and technology. Finally, globalization has brought environmental awareness to China, as well as environmental methods and advanced experience. Next page. But globalization had its advantages and disadvantages. On the one hand, the globalized division of labor has done great harm to China's high-end enterprises and scientific and technological research and development. Globalization is essentially a division of labor, especially a global division of labor that takes advantage of the comparative advantages of each country. This has led to China's integration into globalization, and China has basically dried up the low-end manufacturing industries in Europe, America, and China. However, the high-tech manufacturing industries in Europe, America, and China have also harmed China's high-tech manufacturing industries. On the other hand, there is a backlash of globalization on China's future development as labor costs rise. It inevitably depends China's industrial out-migration, while external constraints on technology and raw materials depend China's external dependency. Next page, please. Yet, despite the bad effects of globalization on China, that the benefits are clearly greater, whether in economical and cultural terms, or in terms of the environment and security, China is a winner from globalization. Next page. Raymond has studied and analyzed the impact of technological advance on product design and production cycles and argued that product cycle can be extended through human intervention. Next page, please. The overall level of the international economy, the complexity of international relations, and the international political landscape under the influence of globalization have had a fundamental impact on international trade theory. Theories of international trade should evolve in line with the continuous development of the international community. The traditional Raymond theory of international trade is no longer applicable to current developments in the industry. In order to adapt to the current development trade of international trade theory should be based on the current international environment, political landscape, the degree of economic globalization and changes in trade patterns, and constantly integrate economic knowledge with international trade theory. This will enable us to adapt the development of the globalized era. That's all. And this is the reference list. Thank you.